Hi everyone, happy to tell you about our new paper that I wrote with Shruti Jargad here at CSEP. It's on semantics as strategy, a Chinese official discourse in South Asia. Over a year, we collected over 500 speeches from Chinese government officials, ambassadors, ministers, leaders, and analyzed how, through those speeches, they represent a Chinese perspective on South Asia, the region broadly from Afghanistan to Myanmar, Nepal to the Maldives. Over 10 years, these speeches suggest three interesting learnings, at least for me. I found it quite interesting first that these speeches are suggesting a very different definition of South Asia. In fact, many different definitions of South Asia. Chinese speech suggests that there's a civilisational cultural similarity to South Asia with the rest of China and Asia. There's an ecological definition in which Chinese officials focus on water, resources, Himalayan glaciers, and the ecosystem along the Himalayas. And there's also an economic definition of a region that they suggest in their speech has been relatively disconnected from other economic regions around it, whether it's the Gulf, Central Asia, China, and Southeast Asia, in particular, of course, disconnected from the Belt and Road initiatives. The second learning is, I think, on what I see a lot of contradictions in speech. On the one hand, we have Chinese officials speaking about China and India being equal partners and needing to show up together to deliver public goods, investments, finance, and trade for Nepal, for Bangladesh, for Sri Lanka. And on the other hand, we have Chinese speeches that equate India and Pakistan and sort of suggest that India and Pakistan are equal players and both have legitimate equal grounds, which obviously is resented here in India and not appreciated. Third learning I found quite interesting is one about the politics and how cautious Chinese officials are when they speak about politics. They actually influence politics often, and we've done separate studies at CSEP that show the degree of political influence that China today has across the region, again in Nepal most recently, but also in Bangladesh. But at the same time, Chinese officials, in the speeches we analyzed, are quite careful and tone down their speech about any prescription that shows that somehow China has a better system. They do it implicitly, but very carefully. And I think that's an interesting learning about the need for us to look at these speeches very carefully because they're very rich in a lot of signals that will be useful for scholars, but also policymakers, industry, as we try to understand how China thinks through the way it speaks about South Asia.